Chapter 9 The Lions of Destiny. Two old brothers awaited the eminent's arrival on the banks of the river Mara. Their fur was ragged, ugly, and worn. Their eyes were cold and hard as stone, and their hearts covered in causal calluses. Having been banished from their pride years before, the rogue vagabonds were just strong enough to defend themselves, barely claiming their weekly kills. The apparent reason for their exile was that their family preferred and indeed deserved the strength of the young lion who'd usurped them. For years, the brothers had devoted their lives to the health and well-being of the pride. Now, they'd reached the point of their fulfillment long enough to allow a new king to lay claim. The love they shared for the common purpose they knew in their pride outshone any arrogance they could feel in their aptitudes, or lack thereof. Moving as one with the wisdoms of all lions that came before them, they stalked the savannas in search of their destiny. Their kingship was not fated to end at the haunches of their feline family, but was marked with the quality of transmigration. This was the genesis of their sacrifice to the one they came to know over the years as OceanHeart. Back in the days of their cubhood, and indeed before those days as well, recurring dreams of the rose-skinned reaper marked their psyches. Now that they were on the verge of naturally graceful death from old age, neither brother was able to shake the feeling that the Emin's reckoning was nigh. Their dreams tended to instruct them, unmistakably so, to give their skins to Nukolo, and therefore their lives just as well. But the brothers, being lions, were not about to forfeit their hides without a fight. In a silent prayer to Kismet, their eyes flickered with quiet intrigue under the moonlight. The brothers' lithe bodies bowed to the divinity that could only ever be found in darkness. For them, this was a nightly ritual. Their vision having vastly enhanced with the coming of dusk, they jumped a little higher, trotted a little longer, and roared a little louder. The crepuscular hour was a time of confidence for the old twins. They'd be able to track creatures who were too exhausted, too old, too young, or too blind, or some combination of all these, to fight them off. But tonight was different. It was a full moon, bathing the savannah in unassuming radiance. This alone lent them to focus more on pursuing their providence in the arrival of their fated, furless adversary, rather than fighting once again for a sustenance that was already so close to its end. Thank you, water. Thank you, coffee. The younger one roared into the future, while the elder roared into the past, heralding this moment as one that would forever free their bloodline of any resistance to the eternal becoming of the now. Then they saw it, a red, small glow in the distance, hovering just above the surface of the water and slowly making its way toward them on a heart-pounding path that challenged their unified dignity. For the first time in quite a while, the brothers felt fear. It was the first unknown they'd encountered in their lives since the day of their birth. The brothers had lived and waited all their lives for a surprise of this caliber. To them, all the other lion things were simply fodder to get to this single moment of undying, real truth. So, rearing their spines in gutsily nervous anticipation, the twins readied their forms to lunge at whatever willing warrior would leap from the lake. After letting out a low growl, the eldest faced the glow head on while it was still some 10 meters away. Then his brother followed suit. It reacted to their intimidation tactics with humble audacity, accelerating on its path through zippy zigzags and confusing patterns. In the lion's world, the red laser light was the one chasing the cats, taunting their mortality with godlike control. Then it stopped. The three of them shared a moment of stillness before the source of the glow broke from the water and attacked. The Emin revealed their heroic form with a sword in each hand, ready to give the brothers one last battle to grant them the decency of an honorable death. Having just been briefed by Hyake and Oteni on the details of why the two would defend their pelts so proudly, Nu was vivacious to the brim with carnal passion for the fight. One couldn't help but to respect fellow warriors who truly intended to test their strength. Oteni and Hyake were young and able-spirited, ready to hold and preserve their vigor for years to come. The lions, decrepit in their old age, were ready to let go of their lives, happy to go out with a bang and to embolden themselves forever in the wind of the sun-ridden sky. As the two dragons enhanced and embraced the arms of Nu, their fortification called to their roles as coaches for the many challenges that lay on the Emin's path ahead. Nukolo could do nothing but smirk in appreciation of their siblings' encouragement, remembering their own significant part to play through this act of selfless devotion. The sword of wellness struck the carnagial shears of the lion of the future. His jaws halted the blade's momentum before it could slice the corners of the cat's mouth. His bite was solid, and the sword clearly hadn't been the most ferocious adversary he'd ever faced. In a split second, Nu couldn't help but wonder if the facial scars had come only from other lions or perhaps from something of a more wicked ilk. Both opponents' eyes finally met in a strike of voltaic focus, and the second that had just split reunified itself in the presence of their conjoined duality. If either opponent ever had any misgivings on the gravity of this fight, now the doubts were quenched by inalienable faith. Both axes had nothing to leave behind, and so they brought the perils of their pasts and fought with the fangs that reclaimed their lives time and time again in the everlasting name of survival. Nukolo let out a primal shout while ripping the sword from the cat's mouth. The intensity of the blade's vibrations on his teeth left his soul decalibrated and confused as to where his body was. Had he been a younger lion, this would not have been the case. Had he been a lone lion, he would have died at the next strike. But in the nick of time, his brother lunged into the path of the sword, receiving the next blow directly into his heart. They whimpered unanimously, the younger from the tenderness of his brother's sacrifice, and the older from the sword in his heart. Then green flames seared from the contact point and out to the brother's extremities, cleansing the hide and refreshing its essence until it slightly glowed in the dark. The past perished in the blink of his brother's eye, for it was what the sword deemed well for him. The younger felt his brother's pain fill any empty spots in his body with a searing blaze of rage, and vengeance elevated his form into a leap at the Emin's head, mouth wide open and ready to devour. But Nukolo was not yet ready to give what the younger wished to take, nor would they ever be. The arms automatically rose in defense, forearms hardening their skin of stone through to the bone in protection to the puncture of the lion's fangs. He ripped his head left and right, but the OceanHeart's armor of love was too dense to penetrate. Still, he did not let go. The Numen sustained the full weight of the younger lion and fell like water beneath him. The first fall inspired a deeper collapse and dissolving into actual water, and Nukolo's liquid body dispersed itself into the earth beneath the two of them. The younger was left confused and aching in heart at the fact that his vengeance was not attained. Nu felt this pain and unsheathed the sword of illness from between their shoulder blades, where the obsidian and nacre had become one, and where the swords of healing and ailing left their mark as a scorched reminder of their accompaniment. No one should have to feel that pain. Their voice firm, their eyes soft. Join him. The sword of illness shot like a spear into the heart of the younger, incinerating with the same flames that its twin had just invoked for the elder. The younger drifted into the sky as a cloud of ashes with his brother, their remnants sailing away on the midnight breeze, finally free from the endless cycle of the hunt. All that remained were their hides, purified and cleansed by the green flames, then condensed into one large leonine pelt, just as the ashes of each of their wearers had whirled their particles into one unbroken wind. The eminent fitted upon their own glowing skin, joint to joint, tailbone to tail, and it hushed the light from within. "This will give you cover, but be warned," the arms stated valiantly. "The lion is enemy to many creatures on the savannah. You must hide, low in the grasslands and high in the treetops, if we are ever to reach the sea of your respect." Nu heard this information with new ears, now tufted with black fur at their tips, and mobile to all degrees of a circle. Their skin had become one with the lion's, and all that was left of their original bioluminescence was a faint photonic hum that sung from the tips of their new hairs. It dangled in the air like green wire, sparkling to be seen, while at the same time dimming itself to be concealed. Only the nose and the pads of Nukolo's new paws stayed magenta. The short fur was lime electric, and the mane dappled in forest green spots, which hid in shadows between the follicles and hinted at some sort of illusory trick of perception. The eyes of the new lion remained as they were, a golden amber with irises that undulated in great thanks for their donor, Dingoneck, with a new mammalian form emblazoned upon their amphibious nature. The OceanHeart prowled along the bank of the river in pursuit of their namesake, knowing full well that only the ocean itself could grant they and their siblings protective procession throughout these lands. Soon, the dark of the horizon would shatter with dawning light, making itself available to every creature in the ecosystem. The new lion's instincts would fill their every molecule with both hunger and amnesia of who they once were. Elephants would trumpet, dispersing pheromonal memos amongst their herds of Nukolo's bizarre new scent. And if Nu were to lose control of their new beast and attack, they'd surely be trampled. Their arms, now gauntlet-like, and tipped with retractable claws, spoke to their wielder. "Low in the grasslands." Nu crept low. "Good," the arms affirmed. "You'll be safe here till morning comes," the arms reassured. "Breathe in wait for the first lesson." you, water. Chapter 10. Silence in the Song. The moon hung low, heavy and golden in the sky that season, as if to tread closer to the star-calf. Although the pod never ceased their gregarious glidings through the warm currents, a quietude began to settle in Pohtkau that no one else noticed, not even her own mother. But Poh took the moon's comforting position as a reminder that when Saim society couldn't be there to support her, the heavens and the earth would suffice. There were times when she would swim far behind the pod, letting the echoes of their synchronized songs warble into hushed whispers fading behind her. Alone, the ocean became the womb again, the only place she'd ever felt truly accepted and cherished. Shame didn't live here, couldn't grow, wasn't even seeded here. Despite all that Fiabi had reminded her, she still couldn't shake the feeling that she was a failure. It was deeper than that, though, from within her very awareness. Fiabi could only remind her. She could not resurrect her for her. The star-calf would have to resurrect herself. But for now, the star-calf was never fast enough, not big enough, the runt of the pod, and the one whose melon lives in another sea. Being the unaccepted one isolated not only Paul's body and mind, but her soul and spirit too. As time passed, it only became more heartbreaking. The other calves already began to mimic their mother's dialects by 6 moons, but Poh still couldn't help but to do her own thing with it. Her shrieks were still unbearably shrill and off-puttingly alien to the rest of her family, and physically hurt their ears to listen to them. To hear them, let alone even listen. Even the elders estranged themselves, for her notes were of a cadence they could not decipher. And their misunderstanding was their greatest fear. There was one time when she'd attempted to match a hunting call, and her voice spiraled into a sound that no one could even recognize as a saimn, or dolphin, or even as a whale. Even for all the exile she experienced, there was something inside her that refused to be silent. So, at certain times of the night, she swam back to the tranquil trench and melodized her most visceral feelings. There, throughout all the ricocheting sound waves in the trench system, there was a symphony of brilliance that resounded for all the spirits of the ancestors, and they each appreciated and celebrated both her songs and the very being that she was as a mouthpiece. "What was that?" Oliki jeered, his eyes shocked with putrid petrification. "You trying to speak fish again, or squid this time? It sounded like you had a beak." The other calves guffawed at Oliki. One of them even added to the chaos by mocking her alien trill. "Yeah!" The star calf's eyes squinted with anger at Oliki. Then she rolled them and let herself drift lower in the water, eventually fading from the other's sight. Her body folded inward as darkness overtook her. At least here, she could blend in and not feel so odd. After all, she had no idea what the sound had even been. She only knew that it felt true to her. As nighttime came, Fiabi found the star-calf once more, embedded in the coldest stretch of the ocean, curled up in a reef hollow, one that only she, with her diminutive frame, could fit within. Yet still, even in the sorrow of rejection, her mouth couldn't stop framing those strange notes. "You called," Fiabi said. Pohtkau didn't look up. "I didn't mean to." "Still," said the Grand Elder with a seasoned experience that only she had, I came. They floated there together for some time in the dark, kelp drifting betwixt them as if it were the slow green hand of Mother Earth herself, caressing the two kindred souls. Fiabi's body pulsed with bioluminescence in certain places, tiny flecks of ancestral light that no one could remember but her. They were the catalyst that caught Pa's attention. What are those? She asked with quiet but energetic intrigue. Fiabi smirked a bit. They are something that most of our family has forgotten. I call them star spots. Star spots? Asked Pa, her intrigue now fueled by curiosity that pumped its wonder throughout her veins. Yes, Fiabi explained, in full knowing that Pa was exactly the type of Sayin who would have naturally been interested in something so ethereal. They interact with plants, giving them starlight. Pa appeared confused, even a little bewitched. There was a time when each member of our pod wore them proudly, you know. Responded Pohtkau. Really? Yes, Fiabi nodded. There was a reason our ancestors decided to stay in one place. Well, isn't that because the fish stay here? Yes, but let me explain. The energy of plants runs through every being in the ocean, and by cultivating and growing our own kelp, our ancestors were able to attract life in all its forms directly to one place, which gave us the freedom to stay rather than constantly chase our meals. The starlight from our star spots gives the plants that energy. It is the energy of stars, much like the energy of the sun, which flows through all life in the ocean. Pa was fascinated at this. Her eyes glowed with love for the story of the past, twinkling almost just as bright and blue as the Grand Elder's star spots. Fiabi let out a chuckle. You know, as bridge between the Sayin and humans, I was always meant to pass these spots down to you. Really? The Starcalf's fascination held steady. Really, Fiabi nodded. But, Poe began, a bit flustered at the thought that just came to her. I'm too different already. I don't want another thing they can make fun of. She scurried deeper into the reef hollow. They only make fun because they don't understand yet, my love. The elders, even they, have lost their ways, and so it trickles down to the young. Why have they lost their ways? Pa demanded an answer. Have you lost your way too? There was a pang of deep guilt inside Fiabi that couldn't hide from that question. Parts of me have lost their ways. Yes. But I remember enough to know how important and special you are, dear. I know I am too. Well, if you know that, then why don't you tell them that? The Starcalf swam face to face with Fiabi now. This question was even more difficult for the Grand Elder to answer than the last, but it did have an answer. Well, they have to be led back into the old ways slowly so that their nervous systems won't be shocked. My nervous system is shocked literally every day by them in every way. Can't you see that's unfair? To this, Fiabi could not honestly reply. The answer was clearly yes, but deep down the Grand Elder knew the Starcalf was strong enough to weather the storm of her family's torment. Still, the fact that she was strong enough shouldn't have been the thing that made her have to fight so many battles in the first place. It wasn't fair. Plus, it didn't make it right for someone with as much authority as the Grand Elder to just ignore the calf's pleas. It was her responsibility. And yet, had she not been able to, she wouldn't have been the Grand Elder in the first place. They don't like me. Paul exploded with teary eyes. And I don't like that they don't like me. And you aren't going to do anything to even help, even though you can. Even though it's supposed to be your job, Grand Elder. Fiabi's eyes filled with tears, and her old pupils met the young ones, electric currents thrown between the two of them. I know, my dear, I can't give you reasons why, but I can hold you. Pohtkau burst toward the chest of Fiabi, right between her pectoral fins and just under her heart. Their skins mingled with one another, the static originally generated in their own eyeballs, now rippling throughout their bodies and back and forth as one. In that moment, there was only Fiabi, Pohtkau, peace, the two heartbeats as one, and the silences that lulled between their songs, humming of a cadence, of both ancestry and descendancy, and the lucidity of self that comes in knowing that they are one. Chapter 11. The First Lesson. The OceanHeart sat in still meditation, fully intent on listening to each and every aspect of the lessons the arms gave. It had been some hours since their lion form dispersed into the wispy morning sunlight like a green chemical cloud of release. And with that, frustration faded up and away too. Now, only their magenta skin pulsed from the heat of the coming noon with love for the lessons of their devoted siblings. Your regimen is not something to be taken lightly, Emin. It is all that stands between you and the foundation you'll need to go forth and purify the oceans. After they said this, the arms shifted from Nukolo's arms and returned to their dragon forms. Hyake paced back and forth in the small dirt clearing in front of Nu, while his sister did the same, only opposite. The two were almost comical, like two mini professors lecturing their wisdoms into the brain of the youth before them. Even still, Nu took the lessons as seriously as possible. That is, until memories of Amber's pain resurfaced. The OceanHeart's lotus position was unthwarted, but their heart was disturbed. A particularly insidious thought crept from within Nu's mind. If Amber's pain from the sickness of humans was this terrible, then the ocean must have had it even worse. Nukolo's brow tensed, and the twin dragons must have sensed it, because they stopped in their paths, one in front of the other, both facing opposite directions, back to back. You have been endowed because you were chosen, and you have been chosen because you came as you were and as you are. Yet, this power is not to be taken lightly. It will destroy your past perspectives completely, reforging your vision into something that sees in a similar fashion, yet will never be able to interpret the information quite the same ever again. That is why your training will be strict and repetitive. These new networks must be firm and steady in both growth and fulfillment. It is a very delicate balance to hold such tension between these two poles. Nukolo remains still. Almost impossible, Oteni mentioned, her voice almost shocking the Emin by no longer being in unison with her brothers. But that is why, began Hyake, we are the ones teaching you. We are the best at what we do, and Emba did not place her trust incautiously. The sun rose as the twins spoke, centering their teachings deeply into the Emin's core, who sat cross-legged in the shadow of an acacia tree. As the day had passed by, the shadow dripped closer and closer to their body, eventually giving them a blanket of coolness to combat the heat of the sun. Two fists caressed one another, knuckles locked like puzzle pieces into the shape of an upside-down heart. From wrist to shoulder, the rest of Nu's arms accepted the shade in grateful reflection. The only other light in the environment, after all, was their forehead, which glistened in kind, concentrating to a point of earnest luminosity at the brow. You will learn to retain your persistence in the throes of battle through a series of tasks. They spoke in unison again. You've already completed the first, and it has become a part of you, as will all the others. You will, or you will not, rise to meet yourself, OceanHeart. Your decision to do or not do will determine your fate, as well as that of the land, sea, and sky. KANDU. 1,582 days. You think we are not like you. Therefore, you interpret our differences as permission to impinge upon our rights. When my siblings and I were apprehended by one of your finest psychopaths, we woed for the sanctity of the pod. To have one of your own children be abducted, you would feel it to be horrid. In your pride and lack of self-awareness, your livelihood is deathlyhood, livelihood. You have forgotten the sacredness of emptiness and how oh so holy the pore is. Absorption of hurtful elements. You let them fester and grow and burn. When my tank was left on empty and I was left to succumb to the aridity, the flashing lights, and the beating heat of the sun, I peeled away as you acted stunned. Continuing Chapter 11. The words of the dragon siblings seeped through Nukolo's pores before making themselves at home in their bloodstream and reaching in primal longing out to each extremity. It all finally pooled at their hands and feet, where each segment of each digit pulsed, as if waiting to be applied to some potential action. The second task involves contact with the cobras of the island once more. This time you are to meet them where they stand in your mind's eye, With the temporary ability to foresee, you will relocate your soul to your home, to their home. Focus your energy upon their scales until you encounter their hissings, and then retaliate. The sun had now obliterated the shade that once concealed the Amen and continued radiating its heat deep into their skull, which hummed in rich, ruddy richness. They need to see that their donation of poison within your body has cultured, refined, and readied itself for the sea. They need to see that you hold their fangs in fortitude, ready for whatever monsters lay beneath the darkness of the abyss. They need to see and to know the power of the one they have deemed OceanHeart. By now, the sun and the scarlet-skinned hero had become one, each flaring their souls to the other in figure-8-shaped paths of energetic longing. There was bliss, there was decay, there was strength, and there, too, was the courage of sweet and utter vulnerability. Drenched in their shared warmth, the OceanHeart's forehead dismissed all awareness to the portal that opened within. Now, all that lay before the Amen's eye were flickering vines of scaly skin and bodies flailing in tenacious grace, ready to devour and replace the chosen one at any moment's notice. And yet, these weren't the same cobras the OceanHeart had been instructed by their siblings to seek. They were the rainbow serpents the Amen encountered before, that latched onto the backs of their eyelids and wove themselves into rainbow bridges of perception. This time, they showed themselves as a mess of rainbow streaks of light. A mating ball of photonic fornication that, as a whole, seemed unfocused, but from within the entanglement, one snake rose above all the others, his head levitating in sole selection of his superiority. As his little face continued to rise, his entire body followed, tail and all. As soon as he completely separated himself from the Rainbow Snake Collective, all the others noticed, and the next one bit onto his tail, then another onto his, and so on and so forth, until they formed a single-file ribbon of linked light. The snake at the very end was the female for whose attention they'd all been vying. When she lifted fully off the ground, the Newman shifted.